I've had quite a few questions about how I pedal board, the order chain, and basically where it is that I record music. So here's a quick little overview. First, my pedal board. The first pedal on my chain is an MXR Custom Comp. I had a Dyna Comp, but Custom Comp I kind of went over to just for the sheer fact of it's got two trim pots inside, one for the attack and one for the frequency range to be affected by the compression. And I'm kind of running it now as a clarity boost. It's a little more transparent and a little more on the brighter side as opposed to Dyna Comp's a little darker. I got the attack kind of dialed real low, and the frequency range more to the lows, so the highs kind of shine out. Second, go over to the Ernie Ball volume pedal. It does what it says it does, and yeah, can't really complain about it. After that, I got Electromonics Micro Pog, which settings on it now are pretty typical for me just wanting to fill out a swell. Tried a couple other octave generators. This seems to be where I like the most. I haven't got rid of it, and I think Electromonics really nailed it on this one. Well, after that, I go to the Full Tone OCD, which I'm not a huge overdrive or distortion guy. I do have some that I've played with and tried out, but this is the one that I kind of found I like the most. Two of my amps, 2 out of the 4 that I use are typically are tube amps, so I kind of like to typically have the volume on here a little higher and the drive kind of dialed pretty low, just to kind of push the tubes in them and let them break up on their own and give me the sound of the amp itself. The tone knob, that's pretty typical for it with my Telecaster. It does vary if I'm playing my Telecaster or my Les Paul. Put the filter switch up top, always stays on high pass. After that, I go to my first delay in my chain now. And the first delay is an Empress Vintage Modified Super Delay. This has been on the board, it's been off the board. It's going to stay, again, for a while this time. One of the main things I like about the Super Delay, that I look for in most of my delays, is the feedback on here. I can actually max this out, and it will self-oscillate and it won't go into a seizure, essentially. And by that, I kind of mean like the MXR carbon copy will go into a seizure and it'll self-oscillate and the volume will go through the roof and scream, which is cool. I mean, I do like that actually, but there's a time and a place for when I like to use it, but as of general purpose, everyday use, it's not something I want to use. So, Super Delay fits the bill for that. That's usually what they swap around a little bit, would be this or the carbon copy, but this has got a little more options than the carbon copy, and it does get very dark. Depending on what mode you're on, you got A, B, or C for each mode you go to. Each mode, so you can go to tape, and then you got A, B, and C, which are different things. The filter on it, the high pass and low pass, I use a lot. And the two modes I probably use would be the tape and the reverse. You can go to the reverse mode C, which will give you a sort of a shimmer effect. It's kind of the reverse octave higher sound to it, as long as you dial the mix in pretty low, I think. It doesn't sound too bad, a little subtle effect of it. Otherwise, I mean, you can go, and it gets pretty crazy. But that is still mono. It goes out next to my first reverb pedal, which is a TC Electronics Hall of Fame pedal. Typical for this would be church and hall mode. I do use the plate occasionally, and I also got room of view on the tone print, which is not a bad tone print, but overall, still the church and the hall are my two. It really depends. The typical settings on here, they vary because it depends on if I'm trying to do a real soupy ambient stuff or am I just playing guitar or something else. If it's soupy, settings tend to be kind of cranked, maybe something what you're looking at now, just because it's actually before 2 other delays on my board, so I can really kind of crank that and wash into the delays. I think it really helps a lot. Now, the Hall of Fame is a stereo pedal, but I do have it going mono out. It goes mono out into my Eventide time factor. The time factor I like a lot just because I've got complete control of both amps, which really I like. What I mean by that, you can go delay mix, you can pretty much put amp 1, that's it, and both amps will get equal if you're running in stereo. Or you can go delay B, which gives you amp 2 essentially, or you go 50-50. And you go 50-50, you got complete control of both now. As of delay time, you can give them both 2 different delay times, 2 different milliseconds, so you can do like a ping pong kind of effect, or the typical U2 dotted eighth and quarter, and you got complete different feedback control of each. Or you could put it on tap tempo and just, I mean, give it a tempo, whatever, and each amp will get that, and the delay times essentially become the note value that you want, and the repeats are just however many you want. I typically put this on vintage mod, and then multi-tap are my settings that typically stay on. Right now you're looking at it as a vintage delay setup that you got. It's not on, but it gives a pretty good amount of noise, and it's just got a lot of customability that I like about it. After that, now the time factor does go stereo out into the Line 6 Echo Park. The Echo Park, a couple things I like about it. Again, with the super delay, I can put the repeat up pretty high and it'll self-oscillate and just kind of go forever. It will go crazy if I wanted it to, but otherwise it will kind of just do a never-ending. This little toggle switch goes from tape, digital to analog, and all three have a very distinct difference in sound, which I like. Typical for this, I would say, are, again, one of the multi-taps or a ping pong, depending on how the time factor is set up. Time factors are in a ping pong thing. The Echo Park usually is not, but the tape, though, as if you go up a little bit on the mod, which affects the wound flutter and give it quite a bit of repeats, it starts to introduce these random artifacts that I kind of like sometimes. That mixed in with the vintage delay of the time factor. Stereo out to the Echo Park, I go into the wet stereo reverb. I had a wet mono reverb, which I loved, so once the stereo came out, I decided to buy it and give it a shot too, and it's just as good as the mono. It can go from extreme ambient soup to just whatever your needs are, honestly, for a reverb. I think it'll fit just about everybody. Right now, these settings aren't typical either, just because I recently downloaded the wet shimmer patch, and the depth knob up here actually controls the shimmer, so I was just messing with it, and it actually sounds pretty good as long as, again, it's dialed in sort of subtle. After that goes to the Boss Digital Reverb RV5. I've had that again forever. Typical settings on that are sort of what it looks like now. Boss really nailed it, I think, on the modulate mode. I think everyone else that plays any form of ambient music at all will agree the modulate mode's kind of where it's at. It's probably a little overused, but it just, again, the sound of it I really like. After that, I go over to Boss Boomerang. That's been my looper for quite some time now. Really no needs to upgrade or change or anything right now. It does what I need. Well, after that, go on over to the amps. First in line of my amps, I've got Vox AC15. That is mic'd with an SM57. It's typically on a top boost channel. The amp I really like for cleans and it breaking up. I really like the sound of it as a whole. After that, go on over to a Fender Blues Junior, which is mic'd with a Sennheiser E609. Again, the fat channel is usually engaged on that, just depending on what I'm playing, but usually the fat channel is engaged. Again, really nice clean signal, and I really like the breakup that it has as well. Those both are tubes, and then I go over to my two solid states. This is a Roland VGA5. I found this in Guitar Center. One of the guys recommended it to me, actually, and it was in the used lot. I really like this one a lot. It's got a lot of the old Boss things on it. I don't think you can see if I get close enough, but I don't know if you can see that or not. But it's got an old slow gear model on it. It's got a tremolo. It's got a chorus, compression, whatever. I don't use any of that. It's usually just I use everything from the Pedalboard and one else. But the amp overall gives a really nice clean tone. I'm not a big fan of its breakup sound, but or it's anything running distortion through it. But as far as a clean, just real nice clean sound, I like it a lot. And it's mic'd to the Sennheiser E609. Those are the three amps that I would say I like the most that I use. Those really do it for me. The fourth one though in my line is a Fender Mustang. I got a 4x10 cabinet that it comes with, kind of deal. That's mic'd to the Sennheiser SM57. This amp I bought more or less to play with my drummer, just to be able to be loud enough essentially before we had an headphone amp. There's nothing really too special with this amp, I'm not going to lie. I have it just because, but I do use it from time to time, but it's not something that's special to me by any means. Now, this side here is just kind of older pedals that I haven't got rid of yet, haven't really sold, I don't know, just whatever the case is. I do keep stuff around because when I do record an EP, I do like to kind of just swap stuff up and just use stuff that I haven't used in a while. Let's see, other than that, my desk, sorry about the Coke, but the desk, I got two Mackie MR5s, or my studio monitors that I use. I've got a Yamaha, I think it's a P55 keyboard. I actually started learning piano first, was my first instrument before guitar. So I don't play it as much as I wish I used to, but I use it more or less now a lot as a MIDI controller or just as a piano. But it's kind of big for the desk, but it does what I need. My preamp that I'm using, I never went out and bought any tube preamps or anything like that, but I've got a Personas Fire Studio. That's kind of what I've been using. I got all 8 inputs being used. It's pretty much always rigged at all times for the 4 amps. So I kind of just already have like a template set up so I know which one is which, so I don't really have to do any moving around or changing anything. And right below that is a Behringer headphone amp that I use for when I play music on Saturdays with a couple of my buddies. Now when I start recording some stuff, it's just easier to play through headphone amps so we don't have to take the amps as loud so the drums don't get any bleeding. Hopefully this new EP is going to have some real drums as opposed to VSTs. I got a little toolbox there. It's not really a toolbox, but it's got all kinds of just little music gadgets in it as far as wires and whatnot. So if we head over to, over here is sort of a, again, it's like a surge protector, but it's meant for lighting, but I kind of use it more or less just on my desk. I kind of like it, so if I wanted my studio monitors on, quick, simple, whatever, studio monitors come on. Below it, I've got a Digitech TSR12. I don't know much about that. It was actually at Guitar Center in the used section for like a music, I don't know, $10 or something like that. So I decided to buy it and just mess with it and see what happens. Whatever, it's $10, I guess. Below that, I have a Lexicon MX200. I do use that. I've used it on a couple of the ambient tracks actually live. Well, I mean by live, but some of the YouTube loops I've just kind of ran that through the pedal board as well. It's got some really deep reverbs on it. Other than that, it doesn't really have too much going on, and I wouldn't rant and rave about the reverbs, but just something for some extra stuff. After that, we go over to the guitars. From right to left, I've got a Laguna. I don't know the model on off the top of my head, but it's a Laguna steel string acoustic. It's pretty much my go-to acoustic. I know I don't really play too much that you all have seen, but that's pretty much my main acoustic that I use. The second one's a Takamine nylon string guitar that I actually love to death. After that, I bought a Fender Mustang bass solely just for practice just for recording essentially. Not a huge bass player, but I've actually gotten into it a little bit more lately. After that, I've got a Fender Strat, a Korean model that I picked up, I don't know, like a year ago or 2 years ago, maybe, I don't know. And it comes with Seymour Duncan, like Texas Special pickups or something like that. I bought it because it came with a GR20 and I was just messing around with that. And, well, the GR20's gone, and this guitar is probably going to be gone too. It's got some really compressed pickups in it, which aren't exactly my thing, but yeah. After that, I've got a standard Mexican, just Strat, black and white Strat. It does what a Strat basically does, and yeah. The drum set now, for, again, hopefully we can have some more live drums in this album. I've got a typical Glenn Johns setup going on it. A mic on the snare and a mic on the kick, and then going over by the toms, and we've got one up over here. So, did a little soundproofing in this room, as you can kind of see. So this is overall my studio. Oh, my last two guitars. I forgot the two ones that I play. The main one that I play is a Fender Telecaster Thin Line. Love this guitar. Yeah, some of the foam just fell off the wall. Love this guitar, love everything about it. It definitely fills out my sound a lot more than the Strats that I used to play. Yeah, overall I love this guitar actually. And second I bought is a Gibson Les Paul. I more or less use that for like a rhythm section on some of the stuff that I record. And this kind of takes the lead stuff, I guess you could say, or the cleaner sounds. That's kind of the dirtier sounds. But overall, this is a whole my music room, I guess. It's actually technically my basement slash laundry room, but I don't know. That's what it's a picture I took. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions or want me to do anything else or review on something, I guess just leave a comment. Thanks for watching.